Welcome to Activate.
Welcome to Activate, and thank you for being here. We are extremely delighted to have you today with us. Today is all about you and how we can help you to achieve your vision and your goals with our technologies. We will bring you a few examples of how we work with our customers, how we support their vision, how we create scalability, and how do we bring ourselves in the best form as partners to them. So let's get into our first example. You have heard about Pinterest, right? Well, Pinterest is a Q-SYS customer. They chose a Q-SYS platform because it allowed them to think differently about their systems and scale quickly where they needed to go. To this day, Pinterest has rolled out Q-SYS across 5 different continents and different room types, multi-purpose rooms, boardrooms, common spaces. So with the words of Greg from Pinterest, a platform should be able to bend to the needs of the customer, not the other way around. So this is exactly what the Q-SYS platform delivered for them. So now we will leave Pinterest and we'll enter the world and the city where everything is enormous. So welcome to Las Vegas. When you enter the Resorts World Las Vegas, it is one of those buildings where you walk into and you look up and you think about, how did they do it? It's magnificent, it's big, it's enormous, it's giant, even the 100,000 feet LED wall that just lights up the night sky. It is a groundbreaking installation that has over 2,000 audio channels and over 2,000 control channels. But there was only one solution, one platform that could actually deliver this scale, and that is Q-SYS. We got one more for you, and that is Stanford University. Being one of the most prestigious universities in the world, Stanford prides itself on the quality of their academic education and the experience they provide to their students and faculty. They chose the Q-SYS platform because it can deliver to that promise. With the Q-SYS platform, their instructors can walk into any space and know that that space will be ready for them and their students to learn. Pinterest, Resorts World, Stanford, these 3 are examples of installations and systems that are pushing the boundaries of AV every day. That is exactly what Q-SYS is meant to deliver to our customers. I would love to be here and tell you a lot more about these examples. However, we have so many exciting announcements to make. So let me turn it over to our 2 hosts who need no introduction, Patrick and James.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna. Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody to this edition of Activate. I want to thank Anna for pre-taping that keynote address. She is traveling abroad in Europe. She wanted to be here, but she could not. But it seems like we had some kind of awesome Q-SYS foreign exchange student, because in her stead, we have standing here the face of Q-SYS Designer Software Updates, Mr. James Martin.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick.
Of course.
Thanks for having me. It's really exciting to be here. Nate does send his apologies. Something about being on jury duty, I think.
Yeah, well, his favorite thing is to judge people.
That's true.
So, but we are here. We are here live. We are always here live. We think it's important that you've marked time on your calendar to spend time with us. So we are absolutely here live to answer any and all of your questions. As Anna mentioned, this is your Q-SYS. This is your Activate today. More so than ever, we are going to be talking to you, the integrators, the consultants, the end users, the people that put your trust in our platform. Today, we're going to be taking a deep look at some of the most innovative installations out there on the market today.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting day. So we have a huge amount to talk about. We've got new products, new solutions, software announcements, and a lot of these are some of the top requests from Q-SYS communities for developers, our Facebook group, and from you guys, from customers in the field. And Patrick, if you have a look in the corner there is a product that's been hyped up a little bit, but it's top secret.
Well, it's top secret, and they know not to look at it because we've stamped top secret
so
on it.
You can't see what it is.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm even more excited about than that top secret thing is our ability to talk to you guys personally and put you in direct contact with some of the greatest minds in our organization right now. you'll see product managers, application engineers, video product managers. Literally half of our Alliance and Ecosystem team are ready to answer all of the questions about all of the things that we're going to present to you today. We're also going to offer the opportunity to potentially even ask questions that are outside of the bounds of what we're going to talk about today. So please, if you have not gone to a breakout session yet for Activate, last session, over half the people ended up in a breakout session. It is well worth your time, I promise.
Okay, so should we get started?
Let's do it.
All right, so firstly, we're going to have a little bit of an update on SPA-Q. So of course, SPA series, really popular analog power amplifier that people use with Q-SYS all the time. And people have always asked us for a network version of that product. So we announced SPA-Q a little while ago, back in June, I think. But it was hit with a few supply chain challenges at that time. However, we are pleased to announce that those have now begun to lift. We are going to have pricing available very soon, and I think it's shipping pretty soon as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that we did in between our announcement and today is clean up the model naming a little bit. We wanted to make sure that it was quite clear based on the model what you were getting, and it just makes it easier to spec. So if you were keeping track of the old model name, toss that one away. The new ones are the SPA-Q F60x2 and the SPA-Q F60x4. Now, if we spin these around, we can kind of explain what those model numbers actually mean. Hopefully it's self-explanatory. That 60 stands for 60 watts, which is perfect for the compact spaces that it's intended for. The 2 and the 4 are indicative of the number of channels that it offers, so a 2-channel and a 4-channel. And it's worth mentioning that these products are perfectly paired with some of our smaller cores. In particular, the Core Nano, which, as everybody should be aware, doesn't have any onboard I/O. Well, the SPA-Q pairs with that perfectly because it does have onboard I/O. And in fact, the F in SPA-Q-F stands for flex channels, which means that if you have a couple of analog channels that you need to get in or out of that network, you can do so. So if you have like legacy tabletop microphone. Heaven forbid you're not using our tabletop microphone, but if you want to use an analog tabletop mic, you can do so with that. SPA-Q also will enable you to do things like potentially route that audio to an external recorder in a room if you wanted to. All this being said, it has a lot of flexibility. It's got a lot of great use cases. And like James said, if you're interested, the price list will be made available next week. So talk to your QSC sales rep, and we're hoping to get that out to you, first customer ship, around the August timeframe.
Okay, fantastic. Now let's get an update on another new product, which is this guy, the NMT1, which is, of course, the first native network beamforming table microphone for Q-SYS. Now, this is a great addition to any collaboration space, and some of you guys have been waiting for this, but it is now shipping, so look out for those coming your way pretty soon. Now, while this is coming out, I wanted to have a little talk about the changes in AEC usage. So we've had a few updates in Q-SYS Designer Software 9.7, and I wanted to go into how that affects the amount of AEC you can use on your core. So AEC in Q-SYS has always been software-based, which of course means that it's flexible, we can update it, we can improve it over time, and we can make it more efficient. So something that we've done in the latest version of Designer Software is we have taken dedicated AEC resources for AEC for third-party mics, which has always been around, and we've added dedicated resources for the NMT1 microphone, okay? So you can have, for example, here, 2 NMT1s, which have 4 channels each, of course, so that gives you 8 channels with beamforming, with echo cancellation, and that does not impact your normal 16 AEC channels that you would have on a Core 110F, for example. Okay, and of course, as you add more NMT1s, you will start to eat into that dedicated AEC resources. So you could have 3 NMT1s, and then you have 12 remaining AEC channels. But you can see there at the bottom, if we have 4 NMT1s, that's going to give you 16 channels with echo cancellation. You still have 8 remaining AEC channels for third-party microphones. So it does give you a lot of flexibility to have large microphone channel counts. Now, if you want to find some more information about this, I'd like to point you towards the NMT1 product page on the website, where you will find a table of all of the different microphones, the different ways you can use NMT1, and how that impacts your AEC processing you have left. And also, there's a really handy calculator on that page where you can say what core you've got, what mic you want to use, and it'll tell you how that's all going to shake out.
So we don't love talking about supply chain very often, but I am going to mention it in a very positive light because we are addressing a lot of those issues in software. So if you haven't been made aware of Peripheral mode, which came out with software version 9.7, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how this is helping you overcome some of those supply chain challenges that you might have. For example, you might have trouble getting certain pieces of our I/O, like the I/O. If you have trouble getting an I/O USB bridge, for example, you could potentially order a Core Nano or a Core 8 Flex and use Peripheral mode and effectively change that core into a peripheral only, which means that you can take advantage of all of the onboard I/O in these devices. So if you want to change that into an I/O USB bridge, you can. If you want to use any of the onboard analog on that 8 Flex, you can absolutely do so. Now, this isn't brand new news. 9.7 just came out a little while ago, but I am happy to break the news that in version 9.8, you will be able to do the same exercise with the Core 110, which is pretty exciting if you think about it, because if you're looking for a little bit more of a high density channel count, this is a great option. The other thing that is going to offer is the ability to do redundancy on your I/O. You know, on the 8 Flex, you could do that, but lower channel count. Core 110 is going to address a few more channels in that scenario.
But also, they want to have redundant networking as well for those high uptime mission critical systems. So you can do that on the Core 8 Flex, and now you can do it on the 110 as a peripheral as well.
Yeah.
And speaking about the Core 8 Flex, exciting news, it's back. Okay, so this has been on order pause for a little while, again, down to some supply chain things. But when this was announced, you know, about 2 years ago, which I can't believe it's been 2 years already.
Crazy.
But I know, it's been a funny 2 years. But it's been, you know, hugely in demand, and we've now overcome those supply chain issues. So you can order this, and you can add it to your next Q-SYS design.
Cool. All right. Well, that is kind of the new-ish things that are kind of in the ether. You might have heard tell of them. And then we released our very first network cameras. And then shortly thereafter, I thought it was a good idea to sell more cameras by eating as many burritos on video as possible. I'm not going to say that this was that this actively contributed to the success of our video offering, but I will say that video now makes up a large percentage of our portfolio. And we're quite proud to announce that we are going to expand that portfolio today. If James hadn't intimated that we have a new video product earlier, I guarantee you that the chat it would have already been flooded with the same request that we've seen time and time again. When are we going to get a smaller version of the NV-32H? Well, I'm here to tell you that that day is today. I'm proud to introduce to you the NV-21HU. Oh, hi, James.
How to get the NV-21.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, sir.
It's not really that big. I just want to say this is a smaller product, so.
Let's decrypt that model number a little bit. NV-21HU stands for 2 inputs, 1 output. So you're able to put either HDMI or USB in and out of this device and do collaboration, bridging, and charging. And in fact, let's go through that scenario right now, James.
Yeah, let's have a little look at how this can work in a collaboration scenario. Okay, so here we are in a meeting room with a pretty big laptop there behind me. And one of the things we hear about a lot is that people want to use BYOD in these kind of spaces, but it needs to be really easy, right? We just want to have a single connection going to that PC, and we want that to do all of the connectivity. We want that to do the content encoding. We want to have USB bridging and maybe device charging as well. So of course that means USB-C, but normally this is going to require additional docks, hubs, things like that, which isn't ideal adding these things under the table. So with NV-21, we can do it all in one. Okay, so we're going to take the NV-21, we're going to mount it somewhere near that laptop, put it under the table, single USB-C connection, and that is going to do everything. It's going to encode the laptop content, it's going to deliver Q-SYS cameras and audio via USB bridging, and it's also going to do charging for that connected device. And of course, if you don't want to use USB for video encoding, you can, of course, still use HDMI and have the USB just do USB bridging as well.
So, you mentioned bridging. We are excited to announce that similar to what we did with the TSC Gen 3 touchscreens, where you're able to bridge on the table, we're going to employ that same paradigm with this product. So if you need to do bridging, you deploy a feature license, and it immediately enables that device to do bridging for collaboration purposes. The other thing that I really want to stress is that James is only holding one device, which means that this, like the NV-32H, is a software-enabled device, which means you can change it into an encoder or a decoder, depending on what you need it to do. Hopefully what this does for people that are speccing it means that you only have to keep track of one SKU. It also means that if there's a change order somewhere along the process and you needed to change this from an encoder to a decoder, you could absolutely do so. And in fact, let's talk a little bit about the nuances of that encoder-decoder mode and the trade-offs that you make when you enable one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is likely to be used in many other spaces aside from collaboration, right? So the thing is, we have encode mode and we have decode mode, and within that, we also have HDMI mode and USB mode. And really what that determines is the video input source that you're going to either encode or you're going to send to your local confidence monitor. So in encoder mode, this is going to decide whether USB or HDMI is going off to the network. And just like the NV-32, you can have a local confidence monitor on that HDMI output. Okay, so it doesn't matter if we're in USB or HDMI mode for the content. We can do bridging in either of those modes, whether it's an encoder or a decoder. And if we look here at being in the decode mode, the HDMI mode will mean that you have your local HDMI able to go to your local HDMI output, and USB mode means that USB will go to the HDMI output. And of course, in decode mode, you can always take from the network as well. So we're going to have a look at some of the other I/O on the back of this, I think.
Yep.
So there's a couple of other connections, aside from HDMI and USB. And firstly, I think we want to talk about the network connectivity. So there's our LAN port with PoE, of course. And whereas the NV-32 needs, a fair amount of power. So NV-32 is PoE Type 4 Class 8. And after I popped onto the Wikipedia page for PoE, I found out that that gives you a maximum delivery of 90 watts. So quite a lot of power. NV-21 is a little bit smaller. We don't need quite so much power for that. So NV-21 is PoE Type 3 Class 5, which is around 45 watts. Okay, so like half the PoE requirement there. Now there is also a power supply connector that you can see there behind me, and that can be used, of course, if your switch does not give you the PoE that you require for this product. But also, if you want to do the device charging, you can connect the power supply, and essentially a lot of that power is going to go straight through to the USB connection for device charging for a maximum of 65 watts of charging. Then you've also got an RS-232 port, and to be honest, that works exactly the same as RS-232 ports on many other Q-SYS products. Okay, that's going to let you control a local display or some other device.
And it goes without saying, hopefully, that because this is part of the Q-SYS platform, it is native to Q-SYS, and you take full advantage of everything that that platform offers. So, for example, it joins its big brother, the NV-32H, so the content that gets exchanged between those, very, very easy to do. When it comes time to integrating this piece of hardware into your design, it is a drag and drop operation. There is no coding required. Even if you want to create a very, very complex video matrix, there's just no programming required. And hopefully what this ultimately offers is a reduction of the number of headaches and stress points and possible points of failure that is generally involved in integrating a separate audio processor and a video processor and a control processor. That is kind of the the hypothesis and the thesis statement for the Q-SYS platform. And again, this product joins that ultimate.
And if you're familiar with NV-32 and programming that, it's extremely similar. Works really, really well. Very, very straightforward.
Absolutely. I actually want to get a little bit deeper so that we can get a better understanding of the trade-offs with NV-32 and NV-21HU. So I'm going to bring on Mr. Mike Brandis, our Senior Product Marketing Manager, and he also was the product manager for this device.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, Mike.
Thank you.
I'm going to go and put this in my bag.
What?
No.
Don't do it. All right, so Mike, kind of take us through the differences between these two devices.
Well, to prove we're doing it live, I know there's been a ton of questions in the chat about what's the size relative to the NV-32.
Oh, perfect.
So you can kind of get a comparison there from the dimensions, but it's another tool in the toolbox for system integrators and specifiers and installers to make sure that the system is the right mix of what their customer needs. So you've got different I/O types, USB-C for video distribution versus HDMI for video distribution. You've obviously got a form factor difference. One is better for wanting to mount in a rack. One's better for wanting to hide behind a display. And then you've got density. Maybe you don't need a whole bunch of different connections at every point. So we have a smaller device, a lower cost device, a device that's cost optimized for the different use cases that you might want to use.
Love it. Speaking of use cases,
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the collaboration space and how this fits in. I'd love to go a little deeper on collaboration, but I also want to acknowledge the other application spaces that this might fit.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of them. So if you have a small meeting room, for instance, you've got a NV-21 where you have single inputs. You've got...
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
That's on me.
Yeah, we've got an NV-21 where you've got single inputs. You've got the ability to cost optimize the space. You don't need the NV-32's horsepower. You don't need its multiple inputs. You don't need its size. So it scales very nicely, and just a little over half the cost. You're saving a lot of money there. If you look at a larger meeting room, though, maybe you've got more things in your credenza or your lectern or your rack. An in-room PC with multiple screens, a wireless presentation device, Blu-ray player, and you've got multiple outputs, two HDMI outputs that the NV-32 is perfect for. But at the table, you don't need all of the NV-32 inputs. You can slap a NV-21 there, one cable for your user, just like the dock they're using at home, and they've got their video distribution, they've got their audio and video bridging, and they're charging their device. So they can sit there in that meeting for 12 hours and be mentally drained, but their laptop battery won't be drained. In a higher ed space, the way that we have this diagram here drawn, you would think, oh, okay, well, I've got these, projectors that are kind of close together. I've got confidence monitors that are close together. I could use an NV-32, and that's absolutely right. But if you look on the wings here, we have delay monitors. You've got a single output, so one NV-21 plugged there for HDMI, and then RS-232, and you've got, again, a cost-optimized system. You still get the density of the NV-32 in the rack, where you've got your VCR signal converted to HDMI, because we're still supporting VHS tapes in higher ed.
Crazy.
And document cameras and all that good stuff. And then, a space where we haven't had a ton of, the NV-32 is not really optimized for a restaurant space. We have had a few installs that have, adopted the NV-32, but if you think about, unless you have two monitors really close together, it's not really a cost-effective solution. So using the NV-32 as a high-density encoder, so you get 6 channels of 1080p encoding in one rack space, and then an NV-21 throughout the facility. Again, RS-232 to control that monitor using one of our plugins, and HDMI to deliver the video, and you're off to the races.
You used that restaurant as an example, and it made me think it is actually a perfect example to kind of exemplify the reason why we have a bridging scheme, because in a restaurant, generally speaking, there's not a ton of collaboration need, and so...
Yeah, that's a great point. There's certainly a school of thought that says, oh, well, if it can do it, just build it into the price. Like, you give me the value of it in the price. And that does make sense for people that really want to use that feature. But a restaurant, I hope I don't live long enough to video conference in a restaurant. That would be
right?
The worst experience. But, when you're using it as a decoder, you don't want to have all that value. You want a cost-optimized solution for what you're going to use. And again, we talked about having the right form factor and the right I/O types and density. And, this is another thing. Don't make me pay for AV bridging where I don't need it.
Right. I am not looking at the chat, but I can see through the matrix that I'm sure that the number one question that is being asked now that they know that NV21 is out there, is when can we get it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're projecting a first customer shipment of July 2023, right? Silly we're at the point where we have to put the year with the ship date, but July of 2023.
Cool, very good. I'm sure that's not the only question, so I'm going to invite James Martin back up here, and I'm going to keep Mike up here, and we're going to open up the floor to questions. I'm going to turn this over to our senior product marketing manager, Jason Kelly, the voice of God over there. Can you tell us any trends that you're seeing on the chat?
Yeah, so there's actually a ton of questions. A few of the very common questions. One is actually on the mounting options. Can you just explain what mounting options are available? How do I mount in a rack? Can I mount behind a monitor? You know, whatever accessories are available. So
the NV21 will come with a flexible surface mounting scheme, and that allows you to optimize airflow, cable management, things like that. It does not come with rack mounting hardware, but it does sit flat on a rack shelf, and you can put two side by side within that space. The mounting brackets for surface mounting are optional, so they are removed. They're not hard tooled into the product, making it a little bit easier to install in a rack space.
Cool.
Great.
What else you got?
And we had a few questions on, you know, when you're using PoE to power the unit, can you still charge via your device via USB-C if you're on PoE?
That's a great question. So if you're operating on a power over Ethernet power supply, you're not able to do device charging. But when you add that external NV21 PSU, you're able to deliver up to 65 watts of charging, just unfortunately none over the USB-C if you're on PoE.
Got it.
Great. And a few questions on simultaneous streaming. Can you stream both HDMI and USB-C at the same time?
It's currently not available on the NV21 platform. So you can either choose the HDMI mode or the USB-C mode based on how you want to deliver video encoding. And that USB-C in either mode does device charging and AV bridging when configured.
Great. That's the most common stuff. A bunch of other questions we'll keep getting to in the chat.
Awesome.
And we'll have the breakout sessions afterwards, so feel free to hop in.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mike.
All right.
So, Patrick, we've talked a lot about us.
Yes.
Talk about
I
ourselves.
love talking about it.
Oh, yeah, me too. But we need to talk about these guys as well, right?
Yeah, of course.
About your Q-SYS, what you've been doing with it. So we've got some case studies to look at.
Yeah, so our first one is an emerging trend that we're seeing in the field. It's called, I'm blocking it a little bit, the Emergency Operations Center. Now, these kinds of installations started a lot in government installations where they needed to address, you know, emergency situations like hurricanes or tornadoes or what have you. And it's nice to have a space, a secure space that you can do deep collaboration in. It probably has a different set of configurations for the screens and the audio. And these have slowly but surely migrated into the corporate space. So let's take a quick look about EOCs and then we'll chat about them.
You don't typically have an emergency. You typically have a space that's reserved for that response, and you want to be able to get the most out of that space.
This facility that we're in right now, it's an EOC, but it also serves as a presentation room, a Teams room, the media room.
Say you're in an emergency operations mode. The operator can walk in the next day, change the entire mode to training room, whether you're trying to show a PowerPoint, and then flip to board meeting where you want to show financials, and then flip back to an emergency operations mode when the next storm hits. I can change all of that from the touch panel. It's the same microphones being used. It's the same Q-SYS microphones being used. It's the same ActiveView video wall in the background. It's the same system throughout. The flexibility of the Q-SYS platform allows us to build tools that leverage ActiveView's API.
With ActiveView and Q-SYS, the video signals, the audio output, the microphone locations, it doesn't matter, right? I can replicate that same experience no matter what space I'm in based on the routing and the control features that both ActiveView and Q-SYS bring to the table.
That sort of flexibility we found in the Q-SYS platform that we did not find in other platforms.
There really is no limit to what can happen in a space that is designed with Q-SYS. Intense, right? You know?
I love that guy.
That is intense. Okay, so Patrick, tell us a bit more about the EOC and how does that work exactly in a corporate space versus like a government space?
Yeah, absolutely. So think about the emergencies that happen at a corporate level. Think about, you know, there might be a security, some kind of network security breach that you need to kind of powwow about, or if there's some kind of PR disaster that just happened, it's just nice to be able to have, again, a secure space that that you can toggle back and forth between regular mode and emergency mode, and then use it, and then turn it off when you don't need it.
Right, so presumably you're not having PR emergencies and crises all the time, one would hope.
I don't want to work at that place if that's true. No.
So how would that work with Q-SYS? Changing the mode of the room, that kind
Well,
of
I mean, he spoke to it. He spoke a little bit about the flexibility of Q-SYS, and that's super important for these kind of new high-impact spaces that we're seeing. The ability to do a reconfiguration of that space based on the current now need. And they showed it there. You can turn between EOC mode and regular mode with a flip of a button. And that's really important when you're thinking about the total ROI of an installation. If a corporation had to hollow out a space just for emergencies, that space would sit dormant presumably 90+% of the time. But the ability to then change it into a training room or an all-hands space, it becomes pretty valuable. And Q-SYS kind of sits at the center of that flexibility, the ability to toggle it between one and the other.
Yeah, and that is a very Q-SYS thing to do, to
Totally.
have one system that changes mode. And of course, Q-SYS does have a history in those kind of high uptime, really secure spaces. So I guess that works pretty well.
Totally.
Okay, cool. Well, guys, next up, we want to talk a little bit about our software roadmap. Okay, we always like to be transparent. We like to tell you guys what's going on. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about some new features for the NV-32H in core mode. And I think you're going to tell us about Enterprise Manager.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I love Enterprise Manager. And if you haven't been tracking this platform, I'm going to go through a couple of the features that we have been tracking towards actively in Enterprise Manager. So we have our basic remote monitoring and management solution where the laptop connects via the network to the core to push a design file. Well, if that core is connected to Enterprise Manager, automatically that gets sucked up by the cloud and gets stored in Enterprise Manager. And this becomes pretty helpful if you have some kind of failure on your side. If you lose track of that file, or if you hit that blue screen of death, you can actively download that from the cloud, and you're back in business. The other thing that it's going to offer you is the ability to create a small library on the cloud. So if you pushed another design, the cloud would suck it back up and store up to 5 different design files in the cloud. What you can do right now, again, if you were to have a core failure, if a core goes bad, you would need to replace the hardware, obviously. And right now, you could potentially download that file from the cloud and then push it from your core. Now that's current state right now. But what we are actively working towards is the ability to do so directly from the cloud. So you don't have to put boots on the ground. You can go into the web GUI and push it all the way down to that core, along with all of the associated audio files and any runtime changes that you might have incurred between the time you pushed the core and now. So again, this is what we are marching towards with Enterprise Manager. So more to come on that in just a bit. But before that, I am excited to announce that Enterprise Manager is expanding its geography coverage. If you recall, when we launched this platform, it was available in the US and a couple other places in the UK and APAC. And we have slowly but surely been expanding that to other countries. And I'm happy to announce that in May, June timeframe, Japan, Korea, India, and South Africa will be added to that list, bringing our total number of countries to around 27. So very, very excited about that. More to come on Enterprise Manager. But now, let's turn, I'd like to talk about another software invention. Invention?
Invention, that's a great word.
Yeah.
Even if we just made it up.
Yep, no worries.
I'm going to use that.
Do it.
It's going to my dictionary. Yeah, I want to talk about NV-32 in terms of software innovations, because that's a product where, if you think about it, we've added a huge amount over time to what the NV-32 is capable of versus when it was first launched. So of course, when it was launched, it's an encoder, it's a decoder, and it can do many other things as well. But then the big thing we delivered mostly via software was, of course, core mode. So now you have 3 modes: encode mode, decode mode, or core mode. And when we're in core mode, we're making a trade-off. We're saying we don't want to do streaming. We want a core that is also a 3x2 HDMI switcher. But it would be pretty cool if we didn't have to make that trade-off. So our engineers have been really hard at work in the background, and we're excited to announce that we will be having a video streaming license available for the NV32 while it is in core mode. Okay, so this is really cool. This means we can have an NV32 doing encoding and being a core, or decoding and being a core. And if you think about NV21, adding that into the mix, this is going to totally change the way in which we can design certain systems. So let's have a look at some examples here. So here's a room a bit like the one Mike pointed out earlier. We've got a meeting room, and here we've got an NV32 as a decoder. And that makes sense here because we've got multiple local sources for the decoder. We've got a display. We're doing bridging. We could have another display if we wanted to. We've got an NV21 at the table doing that single cable BYOD connection. But this is the point where we would normally add something like a core nano, okay? But we don't need to. We can simply add this license on, and we can then have NV32 in core mode plus decoding at the same time. Now, if we look at a different space, we've got this higher education space here, and it makes more sense having the NV32 as an encoder in this situation because we've got lots of sources we want to encode, and it's a high-density encoder. And here, we've got NV21s as the decoders because we have several single displays. But again, we don't need to add a core nano or something like that. We can simply make that NV32 the encoder and the core as well. So I want to be clear, this is still in development. We're still ironing out some of the details, but we do aim to have this available in just a few months. So really exciting stuff. Now, we're going to introduce Vic, who's going to talk to us about the Q-SYS partner ecosystem. Hey, Vic.
Thank you, James.
All right.
Hello. It is great to be here today. As you've seen, Q-SYS is dedicated to enabling innovative solutions for our customers. This is not possible without enabling partner products in addition to our own. We want to make this easier, which is why we're building programs that empower our partner ecosystem. We recently rolled out our technology and developer partner programs. These programs provide comprehensive resources for our partners to scope, develop, test, and release plugins or integrations. I'm going to share some more details about these programs and some highlights on innovations and collaboration happening across our alliance and ecosystem partners. We officially launched the Technology Partner Program in December and already have over 40 partner members today. It's dedicated to supporting Q-SYS integrations with leading hardware and software providers. Plugins and integrations developed through the Technology Partner Program are designated as Q-SYS certified or Q-SYS ready technologies. So if you see one of these badges, you'll know it has been verified to work seamlessly with the Q-SYS platform. All of these integrations can be found on our website or right in Q-SYS Designer, so it's easy to leverage these integrations directly into your designs. Now, these plugins don't write themselves, which is why we've launched the Developer Partner Program in January at ISE. Currently, we have 8 partners in the program that have a proven track record of delivering quality Q-SYS plugins. We can now connect technology partners that want to build a plugin with developer partners that have the right skills and resources to bring plugins and integrations to market quickly. And let's not forget about communities for developers. This is another great resource for all of our programmers and developers to connect directly with Q-SYS and each other. The response to these programs have been amazing, and we are delivering plugins faster than ever before. If you'd like to join one of our ecosystem programs, please visit qsys.com/become a partner, fill out the form, and we'll reach out to you. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about our alliance partners. We continue to work on product certifications and enabling new technology features. For example, we showcased Microsoft Teams Room spatial audio at ISE. And just last week at Enterprise Connect, Zoom demonstrated some new features they are about to beta for Zoom rooms, and fully customizable Q-SYS user control interfaces will be part of it. Users selected for the beta will have the opportunity to try these new features and provide feedback to Zoom and Q-SYS prior to general availability. If you're interested, please visit qsys.com/Zoom. You will find a link to Zoom's beta nomination form. The beta is planned to start in the coming weeks. Finally, I want to highlight a recent integration with Q-SYS Reflect Enterprise Manager, Volteo Edge, and ServiceNow that we showed at ISE. This integration allows customers to integrate their Q-SYS systems into ServiceNow with all their other IT workflows, including accessing robust reporting and dashboards. There is a great blog to learn more, sign up for updates, and beta consideration. For that, please go to qsys.com/VolteoEdge. And with that, I'd like to bring back Patrick and James.
Thanks, Vic.
So much, Vic. All right. We've got one more exciting case study that probably hits a little close to home for you.
Yeah, I know this one.
Yeah, right? This is an exciting case study that we did for the University of Westminster. Let's take a quick look and chat.
We settled on QSE because of the flexibility that it allows to easily integrate it into a Teams room or a Zoom room. And on this project, we've used NV-32s in most of the lecterns and behind most of the screens to distribute all our video and audio through a core. So we've got that audio processing in every space, which allows good quality audio for the students and lecturers in every single space. We've actually deployed over 150 NV-32s over the summer. So I think that makes us one of the biggest NV-32 projects in the UK. And the feedback we've got from both staff and students has been brilliant. I think the active learning space and the way we've used the QSE ecosystem is really a great model going forward, and we can expand on that, we can build on that. It's hybrid ready and future-proof.
I think if you were in the UK and you were not able to buy an NV-32, I think you know who to send an email to.
Now you know why. Yeah.
That is an exciting use of the NV-32s. That's actually more NV-32s than I've ever heard of in a single installation.
Right, there's a lot. So like you said, there's around 150 NVs in that project. Actually, I think since then they've been adding even more since we made that video. But like, it's really just because they're all in on Q-SYS for the audio and the control and everything else. And the NV's got loads of I/O on it. It does the switching, the encoding, the decoding. So it just means they can put that in every space. And even if right now they don't use all the features of the NV-32 in every space, it means that in the future, if they want to make some of those spaces into hybrid learning, they can just add a microphone, add in a camera, and the infrastructure's already there.
You seem to have a very intimate knowledge of this installation. I'm assuming that you were on site, or you helped program, or you have some kind of connection to this.
Yeah, a little, not quite like on site. I mean, the guys that did the programming there done an amazing job, but we did help out. Q-SYS UK helped out a bit with some specifics. So they had another product that they use quite heavily, which is the Wolf Vision Synapse. If you've worked in higher education, it's a really popular product for sharing and BYOD and recording and all kinds of things. But they wanted to fully control it from their Q-SYS UCIs on their Q-SYS touch panels. So we work with Wolf Vision, we work with their API, which can do a whole load of different things, and we just wrote some Lua code in Q-SYS that enables that to happen. And since then, it's been really cool. This has been kind of like a Halo project for higher education in the UK. That same approach has been rolled out to lots of others. And for us, we've done a load of cool stuff with Wolf Vision, right? We've got a plugin coming out. They've been running vCore on their Wolf Vision Synapse. So yeah, it's been a really good experience.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, I'm going to open the lineup one more time. Right now, we've got Christine Fowler back there, who is manning the chat and the Q&A. Anything that you want us to cover?
Yeah, we've got one question here on the NV-32. Will I need new hardware to enable streaming on NV-32 in core mode?
I can take that one.
Go for it, yeah.
So I think the question was in reference to the license and whether or not you'll need to somehow upgrade or get a different model. The answer is no. So if your NV-32 has core, is core capable, then it is capable of doing or deploying that license on it. Now, NV-32 did have some models way back when we introduced it that weren't core capable. So those won't be able to take that license. But if you've purchased it in the last couple of years, you should be fine.
Yeah, I'll just add, I suppose the way to think of it is rather than adding core mode to streaming NV-32s, you can think of it more like if you have NVs that are core capable, you're adding the streaming into those.
Totally. Yeah. Good question, Christina. Anything else?
That is actually all I see here. We've got a lot of questions that keep coming in, but the team on the chat seems to be answering them all. So thank you.
All right. Well, I know that both Mike and Vic have already made their way to the breakout sessions. So if you have additional questions that you didn't get answered, I would highly invite you to look to this side of your screen and click the sessions button. That will lead you to the breakout menu where you're able to choose from any number of topics that we covered today. And I will remind you before you take off is that you can go to multiple sessions. Pop into a session, get your question answered, and then go to another one. And with that, I'm going to thank Mike Brandis, Vic Bagat, our friends James Martin, and me. Thank you for joining us at Activate, and hopefully we'll see you in the breakout sessions.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.